Thom, thanks for lowering this because the way that it was discussed before, it'd be a chin rest for me. Okay, in response to Teresa's piece, this is puzzle pieces. Forced into interlock. Make it fit if you press the issues hard enough. Try not to notice the edges don't jive. At a glance, they look okay, kind of. A puzzle of little islands hopscotching from continent to continent, land masses pieced together, rising formations puzzling toward each other.
Just ignore it.
Just ignore it.
Something is amiss. What the? Oh, it's a global orb. It's the Earth. It's going through a mass extinction change. The Amazon less evident, less oxygen providing green, with very little white on the polar caps melting. And what's with this debris floating on top of the ocean used to be blue? Plastic trash and oil film and dead fish. There's some kind of hazy smog over most of the hard to distinguish land formations, a growth of skyscrapers taking the place of plants. I don't have a good feeling about this. Why are all the odd-shaped pieces warm to the touch? Putting my ear to the nearly finished puzzle, something, someone in distress. A chant? Help me, help me. Between directions. How many directions are there? 4? North, south, east, and west. In between, could there be more?
Yep.
Extending myself toward forward, looking back, automatic, keeping track, yet not bogging down, swaying side to side, yet not falling over, seeing the sky and beyond, ethereal, up and down, all around, and keeping grounded with your love guiding me from the inside.
Oh, nice.
This one has to do with, for some of you, it's more natural to get on stage. For me, it challenges my anxiety social thing. And so this came from that. It's called Always. Always afraid of failure. Always afraid of failure. Always. Purpose and aim. Purpose and aim astray. This ringing in my ear. This ringing in my ear, ringing. Overflow into the abyss. Overflow into the abyss, repetitious. Tangled, trying to get out. Tangled, trying to get out. Tangled. Awaken all wet. Awaken all wet. And yet, always afraid of failure. Always afraid of failure. Always. One more, Emily.
Sure.
Okay. This one, I don't know where it came from. Hoodoo voodoo. A match unstruck. It's the potential that holds my attention. The time just before that igniting flash and the anticipation of a flaming fireworks finale. A burner boiling a vessel of marinating pheromones, heating aromatic molecules rising into my nostrils from under the neckline of a woolen sweater. Penetrating swirls form a ring of fire. A ring of fire. Will a hoodoo done it remain a mystery? Pins and needles and a silver bullet weapons of choice? An affectionate vampire piercing its way just under my left ear while a wooden stake sacrifices an unassuming heart. Guarantee that last ripe bottle of potion purpose. A Mardi Gras walk down Bourbon Street, past all the hoopla, the sweat of jazz pumping out from behind bars, the ne'er-do-wells drunken out of tune singing, the hookers hanging their virtues off balconies calling, and frivolous beads of all colors cleaving. Will the undead come alive? Ceremonial costumes of cape-covered black, a mask of unrecognizable face, blowing a tainted smoke ring breath of cultish communion, of blood red, of the rising dead, pleading guilty of innocence to a ritualistic witch hunt, a cloak of outcast, lying prone at a funeral pyre, lying prone at a funeral pyre. Woo!
She was next.
Oh,
I like that.
Oh, hey, how you work this?
No.
Hey, I'm not.
That's right.
No.
That
Should I
technology
ask
is
Thom?
so old.
Oh,
Rub it in, rub it in.
oh, okay.
Wind it up.
This is something that I wrote back at the beginning of September, and I had a little bit of a motivation for this. Next weekend, there's a slumber party that's being held in my honor for, the theme of the party is Welcome to Womanhood. And I have shared with all of you my journey. So I'm going to read from the postscript of what I've got here. Whenever I speak of my counselor, Miss Annette DeCanto-Ellerting, I am quick to state how much of a deep, strong bond we have. To me, this is extremely important. Our bond I take deeply to heart. Years ago, I shared with someone my stepfather was dying of cancer. Their response was, have you told him that you love him? Before my stepfather passed away, I did tell him, I love you. It is important to tell someone how much you love them, how much you care while they are living, not when they have passed away. This past weekend, I watched on TV the service for John McCain. Senator McCain's daughter, Megan, delivered an extremely emotional tribute to her father. To me, this demonstrated the bond and love between a parent and their child. You may have noticed I have made reference to an ugly divorce I've experienced. One in which my own two children have been parentally alienated from me. This is a part of me that will always be a part of me. A parent never turns their back on their children, no matter the circumstances. In my reference, Stephanie Returns to Court, I stated this writing was, Falling My Heart is a farewell to Steve, as it closes that part of my life. In the years since writing this, I have embraced being totally female. More recently, as stated, I received a court order which legally changed my gender and name. As stated in this writing, my days of being male are long over, never to return. It is important to me to continue to move forward, continue to learn, continue to experience, and continue to grow as a woman. I continue to have deep internal feelings of being a parent. These feelings will always remain with me inside. There are two parts of Annette's letter. Again, that's my counselor. When I first read, I was in tears as to what Annette put on paper struck a chord deep within me. Annette's letter is very personal. I pray I'm not going against any patient confidentiality. Annette's letter is on file at the courthouse in Austin, as well as on file at the Illinois Department of Public Health. I will always believe Annette's letter is the main reason for my petition to be approved, changing my name and gender. Since we began working together in 2014, this is what Annette wrote. Since we began working together in 2014, Ms. Freno has consistently and without interruption presented as female in dress, hairstyles, use of makeup, and feminine accessories, in her mannerisms and speech. She has repeatedly and consistently, without interruption, strongly expressed her belief that she is indeed female. Ms. Freno has repeatedly reported to me that she first became aware of experiencing herself as female when she was a child, more than 50 years ago. Ms. Freno has told me that for many, many years she hid this truth in fear of being rejected and outcast by her family and society. But in the last several years, Ms. Freno has done amazing work in sifting through the conflict of her desire to live as she truly experiences herself, versus what others may think of her. Happily, she has more and more frequently decided that living as who she truly is, a female, is more important to her health and well-being than any false acceptance she may experience from anyone who would not support her living and her integrity being who she is. Now more than ever, Ms. Freno's who felt and lived the experience is that of being completely, utterly female. I am pausing again to extremely emotional. In another paragraph, Annette writes, "Who cares deeply for Miss Freno and seeks only the best for her. I believe she needs to have her name and gender changed to make the legalities of who she is match her lived and felt experience of who she is." Just recently, I have received my new birth certificate.
Birdman.
Really? Okay.
Really? What?
Excuse me. Hi, everybody doing?
Yeah.
This is my new book, Teresa.
Wow.
It's my 8th poetry book.
Yeah.
Flash it again?
Huh?
I did get a picture. Yeah, let's make sure he knows what I want to say.
And last week I was up here and I've been reading poems out of it.
Yep.
I can read 3 poems because it probably take a minute for all 3. I write short poetry. And if anybody want to follow me, just Google Birdman 313. You'll find me Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. I got a new site that I'm trying to promote. It's called crowdpublish.tv/Birdman313. They have a few videos on there. So yes. And this first poem I'm gonna read is called "Truly Blind." The truly blind man is not the one who can't see. It's the man who refuses to see. Blindness can be a gift. The only person who can truly see is the one who sees not with his eyes, but his heart and mind. Blindness is not necessarily a disability. So close your eyes today. Try to open up your senses to witness the unseen beauty and reality of life. And you don't have to clap right now.
Oh, it's just fine.
Okay, this next one is called "A Letter to Me."
We trained to say that.
I will write this letter only to myself and send it to my heart where everything is stored. It is where I store hurt, pain, fear, and doubt. Dear me, don't believe the haters and critics. They don't know you like I do. You are a treasure waiting to be discovered. You will achieve more than you know. You are a gift to the world. Never give up. You are created from love. You are love. And this last one is called "Silent Scream." My scream is silent and only heard as a whisper inside. There is no one around, so I let my tears flow. My emotions manage to awaken my fears. Would you notice if one day I disappeared into the dark center of tranquility? There would be no more pressure or worries. There would be no more moral expectation, and judgment would be gone. But I can't seem to disappear no matter where I go. Something is always following me, making me to scream inside. Thank you.
I just have a little, like, 1 minute's worth of
That's fine, that's under 5 minutes.
Let's see, pick somebody. Look over there. Okay. Dad wrote legal briefs, Grandma tender letters. I write poetry. Wordsmith. Me with hammer and anvil, shaping, structuring words into sentences. And then this was kind of like a rant. Well, I don't know. Well, let's just do this. I went to, I'll do a little explaining like a couple other people have done. So I went to a spiritual workshop, and at the end, or during the middle, this guy said, quit bringing your elephant tea. And I'm like, tea? What's tea? And what's the elephant? Because like the elephant in the living room, you know, that you ignore. So quit bringing tea to your elephant. Time, attention, and energy. So afterwards I thought, that's great. Let me go. And so I went up to the guy and I said, so how should I do this? Because I have all this drama in my life and I'm making it worse. He said, well, think of something else. And immediately it popped into my head, a dragon. I didn't know what to do with it. And so I went home and decided about my dragon. Okay. My dragon. Red for protection, blue-green for creativity, purple, fierce, quiet dragon. Purple people ride purple dragons just because they can. Purple people ride pink dragons because they can. Red people look on, watching, turning green with envy. White people build walls, dragons fly over, spreading purple peace. Brown people stand tall, looking over said wall, watching, listening.
Yay! Yeah, where's she at?
Behind you, where you least expect.
Yeah, she's always hiding.
I don't hide. I take hiatuses.
Oh, that's what you call it.
Nice. Thom just stole that.
I wrote this Friday at a cafe in South Austin. My dearest, what does it mean to share? How do you do it? Money, time, space. I fear having these intersectional commodities because I do not want to love them. I pray love stop evil from following me. I am love's child, losing my own children before holding them, since the basics of nurturing my inner child escapes me. Self-loathing, blame, shame, nitpicking, and some guilt have all driven me from overspending while car sleeping to dependency on your bed instead of my own apartment. A studio just for me, while I sort through the trauma to which I have become increasingly numb.
These are some of my older poems. This was April 3rd, 2017. A storm is brewing, dark skies, threatening thoughts, trees bending across my life. Trump is now president. The left are rising up, throwing off years of ineffective activism, taking charge, saying no more. We have had enough. It's time for me to come out, to join this wave. Time for me to find my voice, to speak up, knowing that silence is no longer an option for me. Zuzu is dead, Jennifer and Darren's cat. They come to bury her with tears in their eyes, with tears in their eyes, heavy hearts. She will be missed. It's time to wake up to answer the call, the one that has been ringing for so very long, but was so low only a few heard it. time for us to say no and mean it. It's time for our hearts to guide us and for our minds to take a rest. It's time for us to decide the kind of world we want and then go about the business of creating it now. Sitting in God's lap. Sitting in God's lap, feeling her love, sweet like the honeysuckle, pink like the rose. Breathe her into your heart, ending your fear and hate, leaving love which can never be destroyed. I'm going to read this one. It's a little confusing, but we'll read that. It's full circle. It all began with a silent plea. I want to help someone. Please send me a person who is kind and gentle. And so she did, and thus began a partnership that continues to this day. I first met her when she was young. I whispered into her heart my love for her. Repeating this mantra as silent tears often fell from her young eyes because she didn't understand events and people around her. I was always at her side as she took each step into her journey. Many times she would talk to me, taking it on faith that I was walking beside her. Together we searched inside, into herself, trying to find the real her. This is the only journey that mattered. The years have passed and we are still friends, but now I know that her and me are the same. I have met myself, the older me and the younger me. I have come full circle. I will dance for you. I will dance for you, drums and flutes playing my heart's rhythm. I will come wrapped in scarves made of the finest silks that shimmer as I move, my dark braid hanging down, hips swaying, ankles tinkling with sweet-sounding bells, sending music from my soul to yours. I will dance into storms and war, into death and sorrow. I will dance into joy, celebrating being human, our ability to create, to take thought and bring it into the physical. I will dance for you, nights into days, darkness into light, birthing love, crumbling all barriers that separate. I will dance until the past, the present, and the future becoming one. For this is what I do. I dance.
So I wish I would have written this, but I'm going to do it storytelling. It's the other two dreams that came. So that first visitation dream actually came 2 months after my husband had passed away. And then on the anniversary of the first year of his passing, I took his ashes to Perth, Western Australia, because that marked the place that we were going to go and take a sabbatical that we never got to take because he ended up dying. And after spreading out the ashes and then returning back to the apartment I had rented for a month, I had rented the place for a month because I was trying to force myself to stay there for the entire month. And it was probably a good thing that I did that because as soon as I was done spreading the ashes, all I really wanted to do was just come back home. I wanted to come back home, to our bed, and just get underneath the covers again. And that later in that afternoon of spreading the ashes, I sort of sat on the sofa and I just sort of, cried, just crying, and I don't want to be here, I just want to go home. And when I went to sleep that night, in the second dream, I could see him through a window, and he had on one of his plaid shirts. It was one of the 3 plaid shirts that I still had left of his, and that's a whole separate story, a plaid shirt story. And he was on a telephone, and I could hear him very clearly, and he was saying, "I know how you feel. I know how you feel." And immediately I could feel this annoyance bubbling up in me because it was something that he always said when he was alive, "I know how you feel." And it irritated me then, and I would always shout, "You don't know how I feel." And when I woke up from the dream, what I remembered was watching him through that window. And I got up and I just sort of sat on the sofa and was thinking about how, I'm like, does he know how I feel? Because this is really horrible, and I was feeling incredibly alone going through this journey of grief. And then about a year and a half after he had passed was the third dream, and that was, it started out as sort of a normal, fuzzy, confusing dream. I showed up at a house that didn't exist in the waking world. It was familiar in the dream, but not familiar enough that I could identify who lived there. And I apparently was there to meet someone, but I didn't know who. I walked in and walked into the home and then into the kitchen, and I sort of waited. And the next scene was I walked into another house. Again, I was clearly there to meet someone, but I didn't know who. And I walked into the house and I walked into the kitchen, and the little light was on underneath the stove, and I just stood there waiting. And I was feeling more and more like the familiarity was getting clearer and clearer. And then the third scene, I walked into our house, and then I knew immediately who I was there to meet. And I run up the stairs, and I stop right at the threshold of the master bedroom because I know that he's in there. But now I realized in my dream, I'm like, he's dead, and he's been dead for a year and a half, and I don't really know what it is that I'm going to find. But I want so desperately to see him that I don't care what it is that's in there. So I reach my hand in, and I flip the switch for the lights, and the room becomes illuminated. And I can see him, he's lying in bed with his back towards me like he would normally be. And I rush over to the bed, and I get into it, and he begins to sort of half turn like he would. He would do this sort of half turn so he could give me a hug. And in that moment, I could feel the weight of his body. And all of that anguish and all of the loss and all of this just absolute fear of not knowing what was going to be next for me in my life, it just came bubbling up. And it came up as a big cry, and it just kind of burst out of my mouth with this, ooh! And as soon as he heard that, I could no longer feel him. I could still see us hugging one another, but I couldn't feel the weight of his body. And when I look back at that, I realized that in the three dreams in which he came to me, in the first one I could see him, but I couldn't hear him. In the second one, I could see him and hear him, but I couldn't feel him. And in the third one, I could feel him. There was possibly a fourth dream, but it wasn't him. It was really just sort of a symbol of him. And the sky was the big number 210, and I'm like, what does that mean? It was just so blue, and the white of the numbers was so clear. And when I woke up, I'm like, what is 210? And I'm like, that was the time that he died. It was 2:10 a.m. So I accept that he's gone, but I also love that he came to kind of be with me as I was going through what I was going through. And I believe now, as I've always believed, that there's some other plane that people exist, and so he's still there. So thank you.
Well, there's a flute. Wait. Every year I go to UT for Indigenous celebration because there are Native American remains on the campus of UT. And the idea is not only honour and respect them, but also bring them up, because the bones are there, the real people are Indigenous. So we go there, but every time I do, it's an education, because I also thought that there were only 4 directions. When we started the Poetry Festival, the first festival was dedicated to the Goddess and the Green Man. And it had a shield, Native American shield, with the 4 directions on the cover of the program. And I was extended in my learning by the people who did the ceremony, where normally you face all the directions in your incantation, but he said there are at least 6 directions, north, south, east, west, and above and below. And I like the chakras. I think there's more than 7 chakras. I think there's 8 or 9 or more, but we haven't got names or sensitivity to them yet. So that was an extension of knowledge, and I always had wanting to find out where silence is. because what we do is footprints on a primal silence. You know, by speaking, we shatter that which is already there. And the experiences I've had show there's also gradations in language as there is in silence. So I think silence is a language too. The silence of waiting, the silence of mourning, the silence of anger, whatever form of expression it takes emotionally, there are layers, archaeological, etymological. So the best experience as I had were hitchhiking. Because whenever I had a very strong emotion, I would hitchhike until the mood would sometimes take 400 or 500 miles before the mood went out. And I also walked into the sea up to my neck so that the tides could take out that form of emotion that was blocking me from being fully present. So I went across the Nullarbor Plain and I went up through the Gibson Desert. And Nullarbor Plain, Nulla Arbor, no trees, is 3,000 miles of nothing but nothing. You know, there's nothing there at all. And the beautiful part of it is the sky is so pure and still that you can see the spy satellites flashing past. There's a sort of romantic gesture of devastation and desolation. And there's a purity to it, like the artesian water that's under the Nullarbor Plain. It's sort of like, it is totally primal. It has no touch of us to it. So we may rush fast past the desert, but the desert has a power. All religions come from deserts. But the best thing is to go back to them, to find out why. And I was a bartender in way out in the outback there, and for fun we used to go on Saturday night. I worked with a stripper and we'd go to the cemetery to see who died that week. And that was our big night out. But we also came across a different silence in the country town to the actual desert. And I think silence itself is a language that we don't know. It's not just the gaps between the words as we share them, or the before or after them. There's a silence within each kernel of each moment that most of us don't stop long enough to actually experience that silence. But I was on the Nullarbor Plain. Another time I was hitchhiking up to the Northern Territory, and I was dropped off by this road crew in the middle of nowhere. Right? There was this tiny town called Laramie, and it was 300 miles to Darwin. Anyway, I looked out and the sky was so clear. I could see a car coming, and I had a can of condensed milk, and I put a great big stop on the road so that I get a lift, right? But then I watched the ants eating the condensed milk. So my message was totally useless. I was in the desert at night with only the sound of snakes. So it was one of those primal moments where life and death are just a dice step away. Anyway, this car I see on the horizon takes a long time to come across. And it's not going the way I want to go. But I don't want to encounter this anymore. I'm experiencing total, it could be death, you know, it could be anything, but I'm on my own in the middle of nowhere, and there is no safety net. So the car sees the remains of my stop, and pulls over, winds down his window, he's going in another direction, looks me in the fourth eye and says, "Weird night, isn't it?" Winds up his window and drives away.